Greetings, comrades. It is I, Miriam, the only Miriam, and thank you so much for tuning in. So, since it's almost Easter, here is a short little Armenian Easter-themed story time from my great-grandfather.
It's an Easter egg hunt.
My great-grandfather, or specifically the father of my father's father, so my father's paternal grandfather, Garsevan. Okay, so quick interruption. First of all, I apologize. I'm in bed. I'm in my pajamas. We are editing. But so I typed up my great-grandfather's name, Garsevan, on Google just to check the spelling because his name is a bit uncommon in Armenia. People always would comment on how weird it was. Even his wife thought it was strange. So I just typed it up just to check its spelling. And lo and behold, his entire name pops up and there's an entire Wikipedia page on him. And I had no idea. And the information on there is like fairly accurate. And like Wikipedia lists him as an Armenian historian. I mean, that's where I get the love of history from, it seems. I mean, I don't even know how to react. Like, this was so random. Anyways, back to the video.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Was from an Armenian village called Gavar. I mean, I've heard different sorts of pronunciation for this village. There are Armenians who call it Gavar, others call it Gavar. But nevertheless, this must be quite a special region since there are ever so many crazy stories from this part of the country. From my understanding, this village was either located in Western Armenia or was actually brought into Eastern Armenia by the Russian army. Also, stay tuned because this great-grandfather of mine had ever so many stories to share, and he's had quite an extraordinary life. I mean, he lived up to 101 years old, so much so that I got to meet him. He once claimed that he saw it snow in Armenia in July, and this Easter story is equally, if not even more crazy. In my Armenian great-grandfather's village, there was a priest. And just so you all know, this story might sound very bizarre and like over the top, but it is just one of those like Armenian legends that you hear from your other family members. I mean, us Armenians, we always hear such old and such out of this world stories from our relatives, but it's also strange because a lot of the times it seems as though there are so many details missing from these stories since they are so old and verbally passed down from generation to generation. Nevertheless, I'm just sharing the version I've heard from my father, but there was a priest in his village, and to keep track of the days of Lent, which is typically 40 days, I believe, in the Armenian Orthodox Church, he would keep a bunch of beans in his pocket. And that might sound strange, but every day that a day passed, he would toss a bean out of his pocket. Keep in mind, this all occurred sometime, I'm assuming, in the early 1900s, since this great-grandfather of mine was born in 1906, I believe. So they obviously didn't have an iPhone to just pull out and figure out when Easter was that year. Previously mentioned, the priest would toss out a bean from his pocket every day that a day of Lent would pass. And when there were no beans in his pocket, this would essentially signify that Lent was over and all the village could gather and finally eat meat and fish and dance and celebrate Easter. But apparently, one year, a few mischievous young boys from the village put more beans into the pocket of the priest when he wasn't looking. And so time kept passing and the priest would obviously toss out a bean from his pocket for each day that passed. But for some reason that year, that Lent was extremely long since the little boys had put so many beans into that priest's pocket. So there came a point where it was no longer March, April, or May, but it in fact had become the summer, and all the village people were saying, "Priest, why isn't Lent over? Why can't we eat meat or celebrate? Like, why haven't we celebrated Easter yet if it's already the summer?" And the priest was very confused. He said, "I don't know, there's still beans in my pocket. That means that we still have more days of Lent." I don't really remember the rest of the story, but I suppose that at some point the news got out about those like mischievous boys and how they were stuffing beans into the priest's pocket. I mean, there are all these like YouTuber prank videos or whatever, but like they should try something like this. Anyways, comrades, that is all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you all enjoy your Easter. Զատիկն շնորհավոր. I know this story was probably so short and unimportant, but hey, you can't really beat that Armenian villager life, can you? Anyway, շնորհակալություն. You've got this to think. To this tune.